Hey everybody, welcome to another sweet interview. Today we have Jill, Katie, and Sam for mechanical engineering. My name is Nicole Felderman. I work at CIVCO and I'm the K through 12 outreach director or chair for SWE ECI. And we're gonna go in and interview these gals and see what's going on with mechanical engineering and all the ins and outs of this degree. So kick it off. I'll pass it over to Jill and you can introduce yourself.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm Jill Nagle. I'm a mechanical engineer by degree, went to the University of Iowa, and now I work for Procter & Gamble, a consumer good company. I work in a manufacturing plant that makes Oral-B toothbrushes, and I've done various different roles there. I've started out, I interned there to begin with as a process engineer, and then I started full-time as a process engineer. I did more of a managerial team leader role, managing other people, and for several years, I've been in a project management role where I bring in new capital equipment to the site for various different reasons. It could be a capacity expansion to a specific toothbrush line. It could be a savings project where we bring in automation. It could be digitization. We've been doing a lot of that as well to get away from paper copies. So anything that requires money over $5,000, I will manage those projects from funding to startup in the plant. Katie, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Katie Brendecki. I also am a mechanical engineer by trade. I'm currently working for Collins Aerospace, but I am not working as a mechanical engineer currently. I'm currently leading a team of FPGA engineers, so that's more in the electrical realm. However, in the 14 years I've been with Collins, I did start with mechanical engineering role doing environmental testing of equipment. I did that for about 4 years, and now the last 9 years, whatever the math works out to be, I've been in the display center working on displays in different manners. So some of that was mechanical work, more systems engineering work, then also project engineering type of work, like Jill said. We'll say prior to coming to Collins Aerospace, I worked for Nestle at the coffee make capital of the world in Jacksonville, Illinois for several years. And there I did a lot of manufacturing type of work, also like Jill mentioned. So process improvements, making things safer, making things more reliably, work like that. And then I'll pass it to Samantha.
Samantha Fellhofer. I just got married, so I should change my name to Armstrong. That's my new last name, but I graduated as a mechanical engineer 2 years ago now. And I work at Schneider Electric as a project engineer. And that's, I guess, the most technical role I've had in the 2 years of graduation. I'll basically look at any type of project that I'm given and go through specifications, whether that's materials, drawings, thicknesses, that kind of thing, and make sure that it's up to the Schneider Electric standards, and go from there. So I'm a part of a bigger team that includes a project manager, procurement, a buyer, and then the plant itself, because at Schneider Electric, so we make a lot of circuit breakers, and we have about 5 or 6 plants worldwide that produce all of these that we have to communicate with.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So we're going to dive into the first question here. And the question I have is just going into a little bit more detail about explaining what mechanical engineering is. So more of a background of basically what you learned in school, but then also, if you can go back that far, Katie, and then also how it kind of applies to your career when you were in that role, if you're no longer in that role. So Katie, I'll let you go first.
Okay. I think this is partly skipping ahead, but still relevant. A lot of what we did in college was structures and heat transfer and things that I could visualize. And I knew at the time it applied to a lot of different things. I decided I was going to be a mechanical engineer actually at a SWE camp when I was in 8th grade, where we evaluated different types of engineering. And the mechanical engineering piece made Stirling engines, which are essentially engines that run on, I'll say, an ice cube and a candle. Think of it like that, and shot off bottle rockets. And I was like, this is awesome. This is what I'm doing. And I was super happy that I went through it because it does cover so many different areas. Think of things that move. I mean, that's an everyday life. You can use mechanical engineering to do medical applications, factory work, like Jill and I spoke about, the avionics. Think of anything that moves pretty much, and a mechanical engineer will have something to do with it. The other part of the mechanical engineering, I think both Jill and Samantha talked about a little bit, is the communication and working with other disciplines too. Part of, because it is broad, you end up working with a lot of different people. And that's something I've really liked about it as well. And that's, I'll say, kind of brought me through some of my career. So I don't think I mentioned in the introduction, I'll say, courtesy of Collins, I also have a Master's of Systems Engineering degree and a Master's of Business Administration. So both of those strengthen my engineering as well as some of my business, so the cost and schedule and the people skills, and that's been applicable too. So even now with my FPGA role, again, being more electrical, it's still different. How do you think about things? How do you solve problems? And then how do you clearly communicate with the different people that you're working with? And I guess with that, I'll pass it over to Jill.
Awesome. So the one thing I'll add about mechanical engineering is I kind of see it as a degree that can take you, it gives you a really good technical basis that can take you so many different directions in your career. The thing that I probably use the most, since I'm not in a super technical role, is really taking, the problem solving skills that I learned in college in those classes that Katie was speaking about, and applying those to my job. So like Katie had mentioned, when I was a process engineer, I was really focusing on loss elimination. So how do we improve the quality of this product? How do we improve the safety of the equipment? How do we decrease the stops on the equipment so that it runs more efficiently? We have a higher output of product and better results for the area. So that's what I would add there.
Sam, do you have anything to add?
I think with my college as well, we did a lot of baseline things, whether it was fluids, heat transfer, materials, casting, and hydraulics. You could basically take whatever I guess technical specific class that you wanted, and that kind of drove where you landed after graduating. With the route that I took specifically, I think it gave such a broad baseline. I did more materials and testing, so it helps a lot with my role now, where although it's a project engineer, the role itself requires validating what we're using in materials day-to-day basis for these products that we're selling. So like Jill and Katie said, it's pretty broad, and you can really do anything, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think what you guys said nailed it in terms of anything that moves and being broad, because I feel like when I was in school, a lot of the times, people would go and want to do something medical, but they would either go biomedical or mechanical, because a lot of the mechanical processes can be applied to the human body. So yeah, it can really cover a lot of ground if maybe you don't know exactly what you want to go into, but want to do engineering. Can you guys also walk me through a day at the office? So whether there's certain projects that you guys are working on now or worked on previously, anything that was exciting related to mechanical engineering that you guys were assigned to? And Sam, I'll let you go first.
Sure. So right now, all my projects are based on validating a dual source material for any component within a circuit breaker. So for me, the day-to-day looks like going through what's open tasks from the previous day, whether that's going through material specifications or If I'm at the point where we've already received samples of this new material and we need to do testing, it's going into the lab and basically testing circuit breakers at high amperages, or endurance testing. It's turning on and off a circuit breaker. We don't physically do that because that would take forever, but day to day, it'll be any of those tasks, whether it's administrative or in the lab, which can get pretty exciting when that day comes. I'll pass it on to Jill.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go back to when I was a process engineer, because that was probably more mechanically focused than maybe my project manager role today, and maybe a little bit more hands-on. So when I was a process engineer, I was assigned to a certain manufacturing area. And when I would get in the morning, I would check in to see how all the equipment in my area ran, how quality was, if we had any safety concerns, and I'd kind of set my day based on those results. So that would kind of be my day-to-day tasks, but kind of also in the background, I would have these kind of bigger loss elimination projects. So if you look at the equipment over the last year, all right, well, what was the number one stop? And how do we problem solve to find the root cause of that and develop a solution to eliminate it from happening again? So being able to either do design work in changing the design of a piece of equipment, or maybe taking a look at how the product is made. Like, can we simplify this? Sometimes things are over-engineered at times, and we can simplify how it's done. So that's kind of been my day-to-day. So a little bit of like the day-to-day root cause analysis, and then also kind of those long-term ongoing issues, finding the root cause and resolving those to just make life simpler for a lot of our equipment owners and operators, and for the site as well. Katie, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll say the most mechanically focused perhaps, and some of the most fun work I did was also lab type of work. And that's mostly what I did while I was doing the qualification testing. So that's referred to shake and bake sometimes. That's used in quite a few industries, automotive and others besides aerospace. And at least aerospace specific, we simulate the environments that our equipment will go into. So we'll simulate an airplane taking off, let's say in a desert and going, hot and dry up to the high altitudes where it's really cold, or then think of even coming in and out of Cedar Rapids. So it's January today, and I think it's a whole 1 degree outside, so taking off, but then think of in the summer when it's really hot and humid, going back and forth, there's condensation on equipment, and considering that. And then also we do a bunch of like vibration testing, explosion proof testing. So think of if a box is in an aircraft, you're rattling around in the turbulence, you want to make sure it works the whole time. So for the day-to-day there was determining what actual tests needed to be done, and then making sure that the tests were done properly. So there's technicians and other people that set up more of the test, but as an engineer, you're responsible for making sure that the procedures are lined out. So hey, this is what we're expected to do. And sometimes, depending on the different environments, you have to be creative and figure out how are you going to do this. So if you need to transition a temperature really quickly, or sometimes even really slowly can be difficult, how can we set up our equipment in order to meet the requirements, so without a doubt that everything is going to work like it needs to.
Thanks for sharing, guys. I think a lot of those are really great ideas of what mechanical engineering is, and exciting things that people can potentially look forward to working on within that field. Another question I had for you guys is, how do your past experiences, meaning more so potentially high school or college, or even maybe like your beginning of your career, how did that impact or help you get to the position that you are now or within mechanical engineering? And then kind of tacking onto that too, just going into more detail about thinking back to high school and college, how you decided even to get into mechanical engineering, or what, I think Katie, you touched on this already, but what kind of sparked your interest within that area. So Jill, I'll have you go first.
Perfect. I love this question. So I'll first start with how I decided to go into mechanical engineering. So I had gone into the University of Iowa College of Engineering as undeclared engineering. So I had time to figure out what I wanted to do. You do kind of your basic engineering classes. And I took statics, which is a class typically geared towards civil engineers, my freshman year, and I loved this class. So naturally I was like, okay, I'm going to be a civil engineer. That's what makes sense. I like it. Sounds really cool. Great. Well, then the career fair came. I think it was the spring career fair. And I started to take a look at what companies hire civil engineers. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is not what I imagined myself doing, or these aren't the companies I imagined myself working for. A lot of them were smaller companies, structural or firm-based consulting. And nothing against, civil engineering is great, but it just wasn't what I saw for myself. So what I did is I reverse engineered my degree, and I was like, okay, well, what companies do what I want to work for here? And I looked to see, whoops, sorry, Google's talking. I looked to see what degrees they hire. And one of the common degrees that they all had was mechanical engineering. And I was like, okay, great. This is going to get me where I want to be. So fast forward 4 years, and I've landed like my dream, quote unquote, dream job with a company that I really wanted to work for in manufacturing. And how I got to where I am today. So in my process engineering role, I was helping with a lot of capital projects. So I brought in our first vision system. I brought in a new machine. I brought in a color sorter that saved, 4 people, full-time employees. So I did all this delivery work as a process engineer, which is kind of a non-standard process engineering task for our company, at least. And essentially it was what we needed at the time, help with. So you kind of flow to the work. So I found I really, really, really loved that. I loved doing project work. I love that I have control over the schedule, the budget, and how things go, and we can build those buffers in. I'm a planner by passion, I guess I'll call it, because I love planning events in my personal life too. So it works out really, really well. And it's not something that I realized when I was in college. It was not something I realized when I graduated. It was more something that I realized within those first few years. And even the first few years of my project management role of like, wow, I'm definitely a planner. This is like where I belong. I love my current role, and that's how I got there. Sam, did you want to go next?
Yeah, so I grew up in Costa Rica, not much, I guess, industrial or bigger companies there. And both of my parents are accountants. So I knew I didn't really want to be with numbers, even though I grew up learning how to use Excel. I really honestly like it now, just how easy it can make things. But in high school, I did robotics for a year or so. I did first robotics and really liked it. And that setting of like a fab shop or like machine shop with drill presses and lathes and CNCs and that kind of thing really excited me. And so I ended up going to Milwaukee School of Engineering as mechanical, just straight off right off the bat, because it made sense to me. My dad at one point worked for what was P&H Harnisch-Fager. It's now Komatsu. They make the big mining rigs and everything. And so that really, I guess, drove my inner child of like, oh, I grew up around these things. This is kind of what I want to do. So fast forward 4 years, I did a lot with materials, casting, and then my current, my I guess to my current role, it's more of a technical testing engineer, not really project engineer because I don't manage the project itself. But what I really like about it, that it ties in a lot of what I've done, is looking back from ground zero of what like a circuit breaker, for example, is made out of. So why does this material work? Why does it need to be a certain thickness or a certain plating? And really understanding the base of the why. And for me, I like to ask a lot of questions. So that portion of it really helps because it drives the conversation within the company, within my project group, as to why are we still doing it this way? Can we find a different material? Maybe it's safer for an operator to use, or maybe it's less expensive to procure, especially nowadays, because that's a really big issue. So I really like that portion right now of my where I'm at. I still feel like there's a lot more that I want to do. I really like the project management side of things, and then the manufacturing process improvement is something that I think my end goal is as of right now. Katie, pass it to you.
Hi, thanks. Sorry if there's extra beeping here. I have a program on my computer I can't figure out how to close. But in terms of my experience building on each, I'll say upon itself over time, said I've been through a number of roles. One of the things that stands out to me was actually while I was in college, was joining a team called the Future Truck Team. It was part of a group that developed hybrid vehicles before it was common to have hybrid vehicles. I think Priuses came out while I was there, while I was still in school, and we actually repackaged some of their battery packs into our vehicles. So at the time, we worked on Ford Explorers is what we changed. We modified one to be a hybrid electric with a diesel engine. And it got about 42 miles to the gallon. So that was more of an example of, I'll say, interdisciplinary work. So mechanical work, also electrical, computer, materials, all different, I'll say, different sorts of disciplines. And so it gave me some experience exploring that, as well as some of the hands-on work. So I was able to learn some of the different, machines, a little bit of welding and other things like that, which helped, I'll say, maybe affirm that I had made a good decision in what I was doing. It also helped me get experience, I'll say, outside of school. So I had the privilege of working for Ford for a summer, and because I worked with Future Truck, I don't even interview. Basically, they're like, hey, if you want a job, you can come work for us for the summer. And that was fantastic. And part of that too was it ended up, they didn't tell me what the job was going to be specifically when I took it. I just kind of took a leap of faith and was like, hey, sounds cool. And when I got there, it was a manufacturing job, which until that point, I thought I was going to be doing like design work. And so that totally opened me up to like other possibilities. I'm like, hey, cool. And I got to work at the Dearborn truck plant when they were still putting that together. So then that was just more, I'll say, different experience that really kind of opened my eyes just to even other possibilities for mechanical engineers and myself. Like I didn't think I would like it. I'm like, well, whatever, it's a few months. And then I ended up really enjoying it, which then helped me direct me over to Nestle when I went there for more of the manufacturing and process work. And then I'll say, even from Nestle manufacturing and process, I was also a supervisor there, both a maintenance supervisor and a production supervisor. So that was a whole lot of teamwork and working with people. And I say some of the lessons that I learned there working with people are directly translated now into leading a team of engineers. So just learning a lot of working with people is applicable across degrees and even across industries. You go from the food industry to aerospace industry, there's still a lot of things that can carry over.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a common theme among all three of your stories is that you figured out kind of what you were interested in college, but even if you don't know what you're interested in until you get to college, that's okay. Even if you get out of college and you want to do something different, you know, all three of these ladies have kind of migrated along the way. Even Sam, within her 2 years, I think she's worked on a lot of different things from project and technical aspect. So I think it's good to just go out there and get experience to figure out what you want to do. And if you change paths, that's kind of what everybody does. So another question I had too is, what is your favorite part about your job or mechanical engineering, and what is your least favorite? So Katie, I'll have you go first. And just let you know, Katie, I don't hear any beeping.
Okay, good. I think I disabled it. We'll find out,
Okay.
I suppose. I also think my favorite part about it is the flexibility of it. Really, I mean, that was one of the things I liked the most going into it, that it could be applicable so many places. And I still find that true, and am happy with that. As far as what I like the least about it,
If you don't have a lease, that's
yeah,
okay.
I don't know. I'm still happy with my decision, I guess. So
Yeah.
I'll pass it over to Samantha.
I think my favorite part is seeing, well, for at least for the roles that I've had, is seeing like a start to finish of something, whether it's physical or not. For my current role, I get to see like a circuit breaker get put together with this new material that I've sourced or whatever, and then test it. So see if it actually works. I think that's really exciting to get to see that growth of something that you've basically either touched or not, in any way. I think that's pretty cool. My least favorite is sometimes not being able to be present for certain processes. I think with my roles, there's always been something where I can't physically touch, and sometimes I don't understand it if I can't see it. Sometimes I'm more of a visual person in that aspect, where if we're changing, say, something that's in like a different plant and I can't go see that change, see how it actually functions, sometimes that gets hard to visualize without being there, which is sometimes nice having 3D models and everything, but there's sometimes that disconnect of like a digital to a physical that we sometimes miss. Jill?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna echo what Sam said about seeing a project from start to finish. I love that I get to control my own schedule. I get to communicate everything about the project, all the risks, so it's all out front there. And really, after a project is done, it's so fun to see the results. So a couple of my bigger projects, one was rearranging a cell so that it could run with one person rather than needing 2 people to run it. So we could essentially eliminate an employee. Obviously, we didn't eliminate an employee, but natural attrition happened. So like, that's really cool to like see how it's improved, like even the new equipment, this is 20-year-old cells, improve the cell and how it ran, and just makes people's lives easier. And I'm currently working on an automation project for 8 lines that is vastly improving how those lines run, and the headaches that our operators have dealt with for 20 years on the floor. So that's really neat and rewarding. The second thing I'll say about working in a consumer good product company, I take a lot of pride in our brand. So P&G is a worldwide brand. I use all of our P&G products, but I especially nerd out on Oral-B toothbrushes. When I go to like CVS or Costco, I go check the display and make sure all of our Oral-B toothbrushes look perfect. If I see a defect, I buy it. But I just, it's really cool to see that in stores and people using it. And then the thing that I don't like about my project, like when Nicole asked that question, the first thing that came to my mind is I do work for corporate America, right? It's a large company. Sometimes our decision making is slow. So that can be really frustrating, but that's also what you get with a multi-billion-dollar company. There's just a lot of politics and a lot of processes to help make those decisions, whereas maybe a smaller startup, you can make those decisions, big decisions on the fly. So they don't just give you $10 million without a lot of approvals. So it may make sense to us, but sometimes it doesn't make sense to everybody in the company. So that's the trade-off of working for a large company.
Yeah, those are fun stories to listen to. When you were talking about buying defective toothbrushes, I thought of getting some commission from P&G for going to the stores and doing a little side job. Okay, so just to wrap it up here too, because I know we're going over a little bit of time here, trying to keep these to 30 minutes. So what advice can you give to students to be successful in high school and college and beyond within mechanical engineering, or even just engineering in general, or maybe females in engineering specific too? Kind of a broad question, but just some general advice for those folks. And then just to give you guys an idea, so we have students listening from Iowa, but also Australia as well. So broad advice is good, specific is good too. So anything that you guys can think of. And Sam, I'll have you go first.
I love this question. My biggest advice to anybody who ever asks me about going into an engineering field, whether that's mechanical specifically or anything else, is just be open-minded, and try to go with the flow with whatever role you choose, whether the description seems to match exactly what you want. It may not always be the case when you actually start your first day. And sometimes it's being patient with your employer and having those tough conversations of, hey, I really want to do this, or I really want to explore this specific department. That's, I'd say, the biggest thing for me that's helped me, whether it's make transitions into different roles or in different departments. Being open-minded with what you currently have, and then building off of, okay, my year in this role, I didn't really like this certain aspect. Is there anything else that I can branch out into? And then having those conversations with your management. Having that open line of communication is also really, really important in any type of role, whatever it is you go into, because you need to market yourself into what you want to do. And if you don't make those conversations happen, then you're never going to move into anything else that you want. And it's not going to look good at the end of the day. So be open-minded and then make those tough conversations, because it'll help in the future. Jill?
Sure. I think my biggest advice when it comes to kind of where you guys are, where, high school students are at, or maybe even early college, I really love that I reverse engineered my career, because if I would have gone with the class that I loved, which there's nothing wrong with that either, I would have gotten to the end of college, the end of the 4 years, and been like, oh crap, this isn't where I imagined myself, or the companies that I imagined myself working for. So just make sure you have potentially an idea of where you see yourself after college, and figure out what path to take to get there and best set yourself up. Sam had a lot of really great points, which I'll echo all of those. Yeah, it's definitely good to be open and honest about what you like, what you don't like. so that you can get into a role in which makes you happy. One thing that I do love about where I've worked for the last 9 years is the people I work with. I think that makes a huge difference. So as you're, when you're interning or you're interviewing with a company, it's as much like a test of you testing that company as it is a company testing to see if you're a good fit. So take a look at that, see how, do I enjoy being around these people every day? Are these people happy, right? Because that, we don't need negativity in our lives. So having positive people in your lives and enjoying the people you work with is also very, very helpful.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll kind of add to both what Sam and Jill said is to, take everything kind of as a learning opportunity. Even if you learn that you don't like doing something, that's still valuable to help you going forward. And I'll repeat it again, mechanical engineering and most engineering is pretty broad. If you find you're someplace and you don't want to be there, you're not stuck. You always have other options, and there's other things you can do if you change your mind, learn something different. And there's other things. And I will say something that Samantha said, since I am a manager now of a team of a lot of engineers, I forgot my current count and I'm still hiring, is be honest with your man, like, hey, here's what I'm looking to do. I'm looking for other opportunities, and other people are generally very willing to help and find other opportunities for you. If you want to learn more about something or do less of something, definitely be open about that, and people can help you out. People can't help you if they don't know. So make sure you're communicating.
Yes, thank you. That's all great advice. And I think that the students listening to this will be able to learn a lot and decide if mechanical engineering might be something that they want to try, or maybe not. Maybe it's not for them too. So I appreciate all your time, and thanks for going into your backgrounds and why you guys chose mechanical engineering, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Nicole. Good luck.